Hello everyone, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis with something that is not Warhammer 40k. Today I'm going to take a bit of a tangent and I'm going to go on about Warhammer 40,000's older brother, sister, cousin, whatever you want to call it. Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It's older, it's a bit more genre specific. It was developed by Games Workshop. It was one of the first games they developed actually, by Rick Priestley, the same guy, and my tablet is slipping again. That happened in my Dark Angels video. I do apologise. So I'm just going to change my angle here, and then I'm going to move. Crying out loud. Will that stay? Here's hoping. Right. As I was saying, Warhammer Fantasy was developed by Rick Priestley and the same team that developed 40k. It was designed to fit a lot more into the fantasy genre, so elves, dwarves, orcs, ogres, everything that we know from fantasy films since time immemorial, we all find them in here. There are a fair variety of races. I'm not going to go through them all, but there are quite a few. And it's a completely different system. Yes, you look at the two systems, you'll see some similarities, but there's a very different setup. For example, on the stat line, which is one of the first things you look at, there is a movement allowance. So instead of moving 6 inches, every unit moves 6 inches, like 40k does, or 12 inches in some cases, like jump packs, bikes, whatever. Every different army has a different move characteristic. So most units are movement 4. My army, the elves, are movement 5, but dwarves are in the movement 3. It just fits. So weapon skill, BS, strength, toughness, wounds, initiative, attacks, and leadership is still there. There is no armor save. Your armor save is very modifiable. So, for example, there are 2 main categories of armour, light and heavy. Light is a 6+ armour, heavy is a 5+ armour. If you take a shield, you now have an +1 to your armour. If you are on cavalry, you have +1 armour. If it is barded cavalry, you have an extra +1. So heavy armour, shield, barded steed is a 2+ armour. You might think, great. Oh, and you can have 1+ armour saves. There are some 4+ armours out there, like Gromwell armour for dwarves. Combine this with some other things, you can get a 1+ armour save. How do you fail a 1+ armour save? The same way you fail a 2+ armour save, a 1 always fails. But the reason the 1+ exists is because armour saves can be modified. So from strength 4 upwards, armour saves are modified. There's no such thing as an AP, so weapons may as well be considered AP nothing here. And what they do is strength 4 is -1 to your armour save. So your 4+ becomes a 5+. Strength 5 -2, strength 6 -3, and so on and so on. Unless you have extra rules, but I'm not going to spend a whole video just rattling on about all the various connotations. The assault phase is completely different. So assaulting happens in the movement phase. It's the first thing you do is you charge, then you sort out your fleeing units, then you do compulsory moves, and then you move. That's how they break it down. So you do your assaults in the movement phase. It's still 2d6 inches, as it has been for a long time before 40k picked it up in 6th. However, it's not a case of you fail the charge, you don't move. You move the highest d6 of your 2d6 and you add your movement to it in some cases, I think. Overwatch exists as stand and shoot. However, instead of being automatically BS1, it's -1 to hit, which is brilliant if you ask me. Because, to be honest, my BS4 elves were quite happy hitting on 4s on Overwatch, whereas a BS2 orc is now hitting on 6s as it should be. Orc with a C, not with a K. I'll come after you if you call it with a K. Right. Most stuff is the same. Characteristic tests, line of sight, they use true LOS, same thing. 40k is in its 6th edition, we know this, and Fantasy is in its 8th, so it's 2 editions ahead. There is an extra phase as well. What we would call psychic phase, which used to exist actually in 2nd or 3rd edition and was a psychic phase, but it was really clunky and detached. In Fantasy, there's a magic phase, and you roll for powered dice, which is how many your wizard uses, and dispel dice, how many your opponent uses. And then you cast spells, and you do damage of those spells, or you dispel, which is the same as deny the witch, and you have miscast, which are slightly more complicated versions of Perils of the Warp. So it's not you take a leadership test, it's you roll certain number of d6s to beat a casting value, which could be anything from 5+ to 20+. You have to make that, you add your magic level, which is like a mastery level, which goes from 1 to 4, and then if you roll a double 6, it's irresistible force, so you can't deny it, but you roll a miscast, which could potentially blow your wizard up, make him forget his spells, hurt everyone around him, whatever. It's never a good thing. The spell is done the same way as cast, so you have to try and match the score of the caster with your dispeller, unless you roll a double 6 and then you dispel automatically. Shooting is quite similar. There are a lot more modifiers though. So moving is -1 BS, long range -1 BS, cover, there's no such thing as a cover save, it's modifiers to hit. And there are different things of soft and hard cover. Standard shoot, I've already mentioned. Shields are useful, as I mentioned, +1 armor save, but you don't get 2 weapons, obviously. Ward saves are invulnerable saves. These are slightly different. So, the value of a ward save will always be shown. Yeah. The ward save is never modified, same as an invulnerable. In which case, you always take your armor and then take the ward. You take both. So suddenly, think about it with Thunderhammer Terminators. They'd be taking their 2+ and then their 3+. Of course, this is in the era where armor saves are modifiable, so that 2+ could well be a 6+. There are obviously instant death, but it's not for double toughness. There's no such thing as double toughness instant death. Remove casualties. You don't take them from the front, you take them from the back, which is very, very useful and a lot less annoying. Multi-wounds is available. There are weapons that cause multiple wounds. Assault is slightly more complicated because fantasy squads, regiments, don't go in blop, 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 blop. They are in ranks. Ranks of usually 5 to 10 models to get rank bonuses, and therefore certain models can't fight because they can't do such things as pile in. It doesn't exist. But you get bonuses for how many ranks you've got. You get bonuses for attacking the rear or attacking the flank, because they do exist. You get standard bonuses like flags. Well, standard bearers as they're officially known. There's a load of modifiers, so it can get quite complicated, particularly when you've got multiple melees. There's a full double-page spread of all the modifiers for melee. And then you have break tests, which are basically morale checks, and then you have the chance to run down. There is a form of stubborn, fleeing, multiple melees, which is quite complicated. Talking about panic, so if one unit breaks and runs, other units around them could break and run as well, which is quite scary. And then there's a whole host of universal special rules, from always strikes last, so unwieldy, to always strikes first, to regeneration, which is basically it will not die, killing blow, which is like instant death, and such. So there's a load of different rules. Lots of different unit types. You don't see bikes and vehicles, they don't exist, but you do see a lot more monsters. You see various variations on monsters. So like you have monsters, which are what we would call monstrous creatures, and then we have monstrous cavalry, monstrous infantry, which are sort of like heavy infantry, so sort of like ogrins, I guess would be a good comparison to be a monstrous infantry. War machines, these are your artillery, but they're not vehicles, they just get killed like regular artillery does in 40k. All the different weapon profiles are in here, which is very useful for things like bows, handguns. Yeah, they don't have bolters. I'd love a bolter, it would shred everything. Talking about command, so you have champions, standard bearers, musicians. I might do some more about this if you want me to do that. Let me know in the comment section or on Twitter, talk more about fantasy. I know I'm a 40k channel, but I have an interest in fantasy, so I'm happy to talk about it with you guys. Talking about characters and how that works. War machines, terrain, buildings. There's a lot of stuff there. It gives you the 6 missions. There's always been 6 missions as far as I remember. I only got into fantasy in 8th edition, so I don't know all the old stuff. There's an ally system. It's a bit iffy, but it's better than 40k's ally system, I'll tell you that. So, there are 2 alignments. Well, 3. Order, destruction, none aligned. So, forces of order are basically battle brothers. Forces of destruction are battle brothers with each other. The non-aligned are what we would call allies of convenience, suspicious allies. And if they go opposite to order and destruction, they are desperate allies, which is pretty bad. And Skaven and Dark Elves are fragile alliances. The alliances can get worse. Then there are grand alliances, which is even weirder. Missions I've mentioned. And then it goes on to a reference section which gives you all the general profiles. There's no character profiles in here, at least I don't think there is. If I go to... Oh, there is. There's no rules, but there's a nice list of profiles in here, which is nice. So from almost all the armies or all the units, of course these have been updated, there's been a lot of army books since this. And then it gives you a list of these magical laws, not psychic disciplines, laws of magic, which have lore attributes, signature spell, and then 6. So it's similar to fantasy, but no, to 40k. But instead of there being such a thing as a Primaris power, that's a signature spell, and then there's a lore attribute, which means that all spells have a certain bonus around it. So, for example, if I take the Lore of Metal, it rolls to wound against your armor save. It doesn't have a strength, right? It rolls to wound against armor. So if you've got heavy armor and shield, you're being wounded on 4s. If you're the heavy armor, shield, bard, and steed guy I talked about earlier, you're being wounded on 2s, ignoring armor saves. Ha ha, sucker. And there's a load of different things you can do with it, and some wizards have access to all the laws, some wizards have access to some have their own specific ones in their book, sort of like the Eldar do. Like there's high magic, dark magic, the lore, the big war, the little war, yes, proper orc magic. And then there's a whole list of universal magic weapons, sort of like, not not relics as such, but magic weapons. So there's a load of armors, invulnerable stuff, banners, wizard boosters, and all sorts. And that's fantasy in a nutshell. I thoroughly recommend that if you like 40k and you want something different, I would say go and have a look at fantasy. The boxed game that still exists is called The Island of Blood. It contains High Elves, Skaven, this thing, the War Book, same with Dark Vengeance but with fantasy. My army, which I've been just going through a repaint, some of you might have seen this on my Twitter feed, is my High Elves. I have a couple of them here. On this side is everything I haven't painted, on this side is most of the things I have painted. And over on my paint station is everything I'm going to be painting next. So all my core choices, my troops, because it's not 1 HQ, 2 troops, it's you spend 25% of your army on core, and you're allowed to spend 25% on each bit, so Lords, Heroes, Special and Rare. I can't really class them as fast attack, elites and heavy support, although Rare probably is heavy support. Special combines elite and fast attack, and there's 2 tiers of HQ. So for example, let's just pull my 2 guys here. These are my General and my Battle Standard Bearer. Prince, which I'm going to put there, and my Battle Standard, which I can't actually put in shot, which is useful, and my Battle Standard Bearer. So you'll have seen him on my Twitter feed. I'm going to move him out of my way now, put him to one side. So you'll have seen these guys on my Twitter feed. They're in the Silver Helms unit that I've been talking about, and I like High Elves. They had an army book done about a year ago, which some say broke the meter a bit with the Banner of the World Dragon or whatever. I haven't got the new book yet, I've only just really got back into it, so I've got 2 codexes to save up for. Astra Militarum for my Guard, and the new High Elves book, although I'll probably get my Guard first, so as I can give that a proper play, because I'm a 40k player on my 40k channel above all else. Anyway, that's all for this video. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to fantasy. I will probably, when I do some showcase videos, I might showcase my army for my High Elves. I've got a fair few units I can show off, once they're repainted of course. If you want me to do some more fantasy videos, tell me in the comments, tweet me, drop me something on Facebook, whatever. I'm quite happy to do some more, be it showcases, tacticas, although I am very, very, very rusty. So it will take me a bit of time to relearn all the tricks that have changed with the meta, because I don't play fantasy. I haven't played fantasy in over a year. Anyway, that's all for this video. Be sure to hit the like button somewhere down there, drop me any comments, tweet me, whatever. That's about it really. Next video will be Dark Angels Elites, I think. Yeah, Elites. And then after that, I'll probably do another 40k Tactica, or I'll do something more on fantasy. Just let me know what you'd prefer me to do. If not, I'll make the call for myself if I have to. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. My name is Michael, and I will see you all again.